Welcome to episode 54 of the CRM MVP podcast. My name's Neil Benson. Thanks, Gus, for inviting me to guest host an episode here on the CRM MVP podcast. I'm really pleased and proud to be here. In this episode, I wanted to cover a topic that I don't think any other podcasts have covered before, and that's how Microsoft Business Application professionals can optimize their LinkedIn profile to boost their Dynamics 365 career. Why do you care about your LinkedIn profile? Well, there's a couple of main reasons that I think LinkedIn is the place to be if you want to give your career a boost. First of all, it's networking within the business applications community, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that in a moment. And if you have more connections, then you simply know more about what's going on. You get to see more content, more of what's fresh, what's hot, what's trending. Here are some recent examples about what I've learned on LinkedIn. I've learned about the new job role certificates for Dynamics 365. So the new exams, I learned about that first on LinkedIn. Changes to the CDS API limits, learned about that on LinkedIn first as well. I'm working with an ISV at the moment called Aptus, and I found out on LinkedIn that they had been acquired by private equity firm Thoma Bravo, and their new CEO is a former Microsoft Business Apps CVP, Frank Holland. I also discovered that a local Microsoft Business Apps partner here in Australia, Fusion 5, had acquired a local CRM firm in Brisbane called CRM Group. Congratulations, Ross Guthrie and team. I heard about that first on LinkedIn. I also find out about who's changing jobs, which partners are hiring, and which partners aren't. In almost every role as a business applications professional, it helps to know what's going on. Some roles really benefit from this market intelligence and technical intelligence. And of course, a very popular reason for using LinkedIn is when you're looking for a new role. Whether you're looking for a permanent position with a Microsoft customer or partner, or an independent consultant, I think using LinkedIn is hands down the best tool on the planet for improving your career. Here are a few examples of how I use LinkedIn to find new roles. Using LinkedIn, I was able to connect with an old contact, Brian Rimmer at Slalom Consulting. I had met Brian at Convergence in Europe. I think it was actually in London around 2010. I was living in the UK at the time and looking for a new role in the United States. So I searched through LinkedIn, came up with Brian's name. He'd moved back to Seattle in Washington. And after a quick call with him, my wife and I were flown to New York to meet with Brian's managing director, Stephen Roger. And a few months later, we moved to California. Also using LinkedIn, I reconnected with Craig Steer at Microsoft and asked him which Microsoft partners in Australia were hiring. This was when I had moved back to London and we were about to move to Australia and I was looking for a new role out here. Craig had just been seconded to KPMG Australia, and a quick LinkedIn message with an attached resume to Craig, a couple of phone calls with some KPMG partners, and my family was on its way to Australia. And once more I became an independent consultant in June last year. I heard that two local companies here in Brisbane, the Royal Automobile Club of Queensland and the Bank of Queensland, had both made big investments in Dynamics 365 customer engagement. I was able to search my contacts to find anyone in my network who had worked at those organisations. I'd worked with Steve Moody at KPMG, and he was now an enterprise architect at RACQ. Again, a quick LinkedIn message, and he set up a meeting with the general manager of technology strategy, and a few weeks later, I was hired as the delivery lead for their Jupiter program. So there are three great roles that I have found directly through my LinkedIn connections. Have to admit, I don't genuinely accept connection requests from recruiters. I will connect with recruiters, but only after I've worked with them. Either they've helped me hire a candidate, or, in the past, a couple of recruiters have helped me find a role. So I only connect with recruiters who have a quality approach, who have integrity, and who I can trust. I also use LinkedIn as a hiring manager to recruit Dynamics 365 professionals. At KPMG, I probably interviewed around 50 candidates in my 3 years there. A lot of them were referrals from the small team we already had. Some of them had applied to recruitment posts I ran on LinkedIn, and some came through the one or two recruiters I was working with. At RACQ, I've hired 18 people for my delivery team. And in all those cases, I used LinkedIn to check out the candidate's profile. Does their CV match their LinkedIn profile? And more importantly, who do they know that I know? I will definitely take an informal reference from a common connection that I trust before I even chat with the candidate. So here are my top 10 tips if you're a Microsoft Business Applications professional using LinkedIn to find a new role. These tips will work for you whether you're a Dynamics 365 fan, working for a customer, and perhaps looking for your first role in consulting, or a consultant working for a Microsoft partner and looking for a new role, or an independent Dynamics 365 consultant in business for yourself. It doesn't matter which of those segments you fall into. I think LinkedIn can really boost your career, even if all you're doing is looking for a step up inside your current organization. So let's work down them. This is the order that they come in your LinkedIn profile whenever you go to edit it. First of all, your photo. It's not a good idea in our industry to include a photo on your resume, but the opposite is true on LinkedIn. You should always include a profile picture. Now, there are a couple of exceptions where that might not be true. If you feel discriminated against because of your age, gender, ethnicity, or religion, then you might not want to include a photo. I get that. I hope that our industry is not discriminatory and that you feel comfortable including a profile picture, but I get it if you're not. If you are able to include a profile picture, and I hope most of us are, here are my top tips for your profile picture. Number 1, use as large a picture as possible. The maximum file size is 500 by 500 pixels and 4 megabytes. Use as much of that as you can for the best possible resolution. Someday, someone is going to use your LinkedIn profile picture for a speaker bio at a conference, and you don't want to be the only one in the lineup to be a pixelated mess. Second, use a professional photographer. If you can't, then ask a family member or a friend, or use a tripod to take your photo specifically for your LinkedIn headshot. Use a short focal point, about f2.8, which will focus on you and blur your background. Find good lighting and make sure your background isn't too busy or distracting. A plain background, an office setting, or even some people use a garden, and that can work quite well. Black and white is okay, but I prefer color. And you can hire someone on Fiverr to make the best of your photograph, so if you don't have photo editing skills or the software to do it. $5 to make a good first impression is definitely worth it. Thirdly, crop the photo to your head and shoulders. Please don't use an image of you speaking on stage at a conference where you're tiny. Don't use an image of you standing beside someone else. I might not know which one of you is Satya Nadella. And don't crop an image of you from a group shot, you know, the ones with somebody's arm hanging around your neck. And the only person I know who can get away with an action shot as a LinkedIn profile is Jerry Water Skier Weinstock. Look, Jerry's been his own boss for 20 years, and he's probably not using LinkedIn to further his career. He can get away with it. You and I can't. Face the camera and smile naturally. I swear, sometimes I think that Dynamics 365 professionals use their passport photograph on LinkedIn. You know, the ones where you have to face the camera square on, your shoulders square, you're not allowed to smile. Come on, relax, smile, try to appear warm, open, and friendly. Imagine you're about to meet Gus Gonzalez for the first time. I say, perhaps. Dress appropriately. Dress how you normally would for work. That's my rule of thumb. That usually means business formal or business casual. A few people can get away with something very casual on LinkedIn. I'm not one of them. To be honest, you're probably not either. For goodness sake, don't go the other way either. Don't wear a formal dress or a suit like you're at a party or it's your wedding photograph. You'll look like a try-hard junior recruiter. And don't wear sunglasses in your photo unless you always wear sunglasses indoors, and you'll be wearing them when I meet you at the Business Applications Summit. Otherwise, you just look like an idiot. Secondly, how to maximize your LinkedIn profile. It's your name. Your name? That should be an easy one, right? Well, you'd think so, but there are one or two things that I see people get wrong with something as simple as their name. And these are just my personal preferences, but here they are. First of all, it's stuffing your qualifications into your name. Quite often you'll see someone with MBA, Prince 2, CSM, MCSE, or some similar qualifications in their last name. One of my old managers 20 years ago was the first person in her family to ever go to university. So she had BSc Hons on her bank card and her checkbook. If LinkedIn had been around, I'm sure she would have stuffed her degree into her LinkedIn name too. And look, I get it. If you've got an advanced degree and that was a big deal for you to achieve, you're super proud of it. But please, save it for the education or the achievement section. Second of all, it's having lots of names. In some cultures, it's common to have 2 or more first names and 2 or more last names. And you should use those if you live and work in a culture that uses lots of names. But if you've moved overseas or you're trying to appeal to a global audience, then help yourself out by simplifying your names. What do you prefer to be called in a business meeting? Use that. How will you introduce yourself to me when we first meet? Use that. I recommend leaving out your middle name, your middle initial, or your suffix. Thirdly, it's your headline. This is it. This is probably the most important part of your LinkedIn profile to get nailed. You've got just 120 characters to do it, so make them count. Don't use the default headline, which is your current position and company. Here are my tips for your LinkedIn headline. Emphasize your speciality and what you love doing. Your job title might be Associate Consultant or Software Developer, and that's okay in the experience section, but emphasize your speciality and passion in your headline. Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement Consultant specializing in portals. Or Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Integrations Developer with 10 plus years experience. One of the things I definitely recommend is using the full product name in your headline. That's what most people are searching on, and your headline is optimized for search engine optimization. So make sure you're not abbreviating Microsoft Dynamics 365 to D365 or MS CRM, and don't claim to be something that you're not, but definitely highlight the strengths you'd like to lean into in a future role. Second is include your current employer, but only usually if it's a brand name that your audience will recognize. If you work for a well-known Microsoft customer or partner, use their name in your headline. If you work for yourself, use phrases like independent or freelancer instead. And if you work for a lesser-known company that people aren't likely to recognize, then leave that for the experience section. A lot of people describe what they do in pretty vague terms that sounds more like a vision statement than a career headline. Things like, I unlock corporate productivity by unleashing the done in everyone. Yuck, oh, makes me cringe. Imagine you're at a party and someone asks you what you do. You might tell them your job title, but if they ask you, what does that mean? Then your answer should be your LinkedIn headline. Avoid over-bragging. Some people, they take it too far. Thought leaders, ninjas, gurus, world-class experts. Use only adjectives that you could use in an interview while keeping a straight face. Number 4 in your LinkedIn profile, pretty simple one, it's your contact info. I include as much contact information as possible. I include my blog URL, my Scrum for Dynamics 365 course URL, and my website URL, my mobile telephone number, and my email address. Here's a couple of quick tips. Your URLs give you a chance to show off your portfolio. We'll come back to your portfolio in a moment, but use your URLs to highlight your accomplishments online. You can have up to 3 websites. Don't waste this opportunity. Even if it's just pointing at your profile page on the Dynamics 365 forums, that's a good start. I include my mobile phone number. I know that it will synchronize onto the phone of my connections if they use the LinkedIn app on their mobile phone, and I'm okay with that. You might not be so comfortable with that, so you could either leave out your phone number or get a Google Voice or Skype phone number and use those instead. Use a professional email address. Better yet, use 2. Include your current work email address so that connections who want to reach you about something related to your work can do that. And for your personal email address, I recommend buying your own domain name and setting it up as your email address. Don't use a Gmail or Hotmail email address for LinkedIn. Use something that looks a little bit more professional. And lastly, for the contact info section, and this one is a pretty divisive one, it's including your birthday on LinkedIn. I haven't seen it as much recently, but LinkedIn used to come up in my feed with, it's so-and-so's birthday today. Well, I've got quite a lot of connections, and I don't want a LinkedIn feed that's full of people's birthdays. because no one cares. Unless you work with Eliza Benitez, who's probably going to bake you an amazing gluten-free birthday cake, no one else on LinkedIn cares that it's your birthday today. Sorry. Next, it's your current position. The current position field is really only relevant if you've got more than one current position. It might apply to you if, like me, you're an independent consultant and as well as running your own business, you have a long-term engagement with a Microsoft customer or partner. Otherwise, just make sure it links to your current job. Number 6 is the location and industry. I recommend that you are specific with your location. Don't just put the country that you live, but specify the city and the state as well. If you're looking for a new role in a new location, you can specify that new location here, so give people the impression that you are where you want to live. But only do that if you're available for interview at short notice. For example, I currently live in Urunga, which is a suburb of Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. So my location is Brisbane. If I was looking for a job in Sydney, I'd specify Sydney as my location because I can fly there in a couple of hours. If I was looking for a role in, Cape Town, South Africa, I wouldn't use that for my current location, given that it's probably going to take me a day or two to get there. Use information technology and services or management consulting as the industry if you work for a Microsoft partner. Information technology and services is also a good choice for people working for a Microsoft customer, even if your organization is in a different industry like food production or medical devices or something else. If you work in the IT department and you're looking for a role in another IT department or in the IT industry as a consultant, then use information technology and services as your LinkedIn profile industry. Number 7 is your summary. After your headline, the summary is the next most important section. And one of the hardest parts about it is to decide whether or not to write it in the first person or the third person. The first person sounds like this. My mission is to help everyone use the Scrum framework to successfully implement Microsoft business applications. I've been implementing CRM projects for 16 years, and so on and so on. Third person sounds like this. Neil's mission is to help everyone use the Scrum framework to successfully implement Microsoft business applications. He has been implementing CRM projects for 16 years. First person is like you talking to someone else about yourself. Use words like I and my. Third person is like someone else describing you. Use your name and pronouns like his or her. There is this middle ground, I'm not sure what it's called, where you write without any pronouns at all. It sounds like this. Mission is to help everyone use the Scrum framework to successfully implement Microsoft business applications. Has been implementing CRM projects for 16 years. See, I've dropped all the pronouns there. It sounds really awkward. Don't do that. I prefer writing in the first person on my LinkedIn profile, but I think I've used the third person on my CV, which sounds a bit more formal. It's probably more suitable for your CV or resume. Maybe that's my personal taste, but I'm trying to make my LinkedIn profile sound warm and conversational. On your LinkedIn profile, I want to read about you in your own words, as if you were telling me your story. So I prefer if you write in the first person. Once you've decided to write in the first person, the next part is to figure out what it is that you want to say in your summary. Here are a couple of ideas. Find the summaries of people that you admire in roles similar to the roles that you aspire to. Copy and paste their summary, not into your summary, that would be a bit weird, but into Wordle, which is wordle.net/create. Paste it into Wordle, and as you do that with a few summaries, Wordle will illustrate which keywords and themes are recurring in those summaries. You can then use those keywords as a scaffolding for your summary. Make sure you're peppering the same keywords and themes into your own summary that you see in the summaries of people you admire. Tell a story in your summary. A story needs a central character, that's you by the way, and a challenge, which is a plot, and an outcome, hopefully a happy ending. You've got 2,000 characters in your LinkedIn summary, and I recommend using about half of those to tell one or two stories about your background in a compelling way. Make sure you emphasize the one thing that you want to be well known for. In my case, it's Scrum for Dynamics 365. What's yours? It should be easy to tell from reading the first line of your summary. Here's a couple of examples. My mission is to help everyone successfully implement Microsoft business applications using the Scrum Agile Software Development Framework. Guess whose profile that is? My projects achieve their business objectives because I remain focused on the big picture while ensuring my project team members have all the resources they need and there's nothing in their way. That would be a good first line for a project manager. Or here's one for a business analyst. As an agile business analyst, I love writing ERP user stories that are clear and concise and that my developers can turn into working software quickly and that we can get our features accepted first time, every time. It's a bit long for a single sentence, but it gives me a great impression of the type of work that this business analyst loves doing. Here's another. I specialize in complex integrations between Dynamics 365 finance and operations and other internal and external line of business systems. I enjoy sharing my expertise on integration patterns with my team so that we have the right option for every integration scenario. You've got about 300 characters that show in your summary before someone visiting your profile needs to click Show More to see the rest. Start strong in those first few lines. Later on, include a couple more lines to highlight your specialities. Remember to use the keywords that other business application professionals are searching for. My recommendation is always to describe the technology in the same way that the vendor does in their website. For example, I wouldn't hire somebody who confuses Java with JavaScript. I'd think twice about someone who capitalizes the letters in Scrum. And I recently rejected a candidate who spelled Dynamics 365 customer engagement using 6 different abbreviations on a LinkedIn profile. A short summary can be okay, but I recommend using all the space that LinkedIn gives you. Break it up into paragraphs and use headings if that makes the contents of each section or paragraph clearer in your summary. Whether you're looking for a new role or trying to show your expertise to prospective clients, culture fit is important, really important these days. I wouldn't use emojis if I worked for a global management consultancy or wanted to land projects with global multinationals. But emojis can be fun and will help you stand out if you work for a local Microsoft partner that works with marketing agencies. So the key here is know your audience. Who's going to be looking at your profile? What type of people do you want to attract to your profile? And what impression do you want them to walk away with? Finally, I don't recommend putting contact information into your summary section. On LinkedIn, recruiters often try to look like Dynamics consultants. But we all know recruiters don't have a reflection in a mirror. They are adverse to garlic, and they can't help putting their contact information in their LinkedIn summary. You don't want to look like a recruiter. Leave out your contact information. Next up, number 8, is the media section. The media section is where you get to upload your portfolio. A portfolio is a collection of examples of your work that show off your talents. First of all, don't upload your CV. That makes you just appear a little bit desperate for a new job. And if you currently have a job, it's a big warning sign to your manager. So don't upload your CV. Don't upload an example of your work that is confidential. No internal design specifications, no client proposals or private presentations. Do upload any public presentations. If you've presented to your local user group, or you've built an open source app, or you rock on a support forum, build a presentation about those things and share them here. As a hiring manager, I have to tell you that candidates that have a good portfolio stand out high and above candidates that don't. I love to see Dynamics 365 professionals that are original thinkers, that share their knowledge and are connected within the community. I call those people thought leaders. Number 9 are the articles and activities section. The articles and activities section is another opportunity for you to display your thought leadership. Don't describe yourself as a thought leader. Let your work do that for you. If you already have a blog post, a podcast, or a video channel, then cross-post your work to LinkedIn articles. Or even if all you do is provide intelligent comments on other people's posts and articles, it'll show up here and highlight your critical thinking and communication skills. And that's got to be good for any hiring manager who wants to check out your profile quickly. And it's something they're never going to see on your resume. Number 10 is the experience section. I'm not going to go into the experience section in too much detail. One, because it's probably very similar to the resume or CV you already got. And secondly, I don't think hiring managers pay half as much attention to it on LinkedIn as they do when reading your resume. But there are a couple of pieces of advice that you've probably already read about writing a resume that applies here too. First of all, keep it accurate and truthful, but make sure it highlights the very best version of you in each of your roles. I use the past tense for all my former roles and the present tense for my current role. It makes it easier to read and makes it clearer for somebody exactly which role I'm in at the moment. I highlight my accomplishments and my achievements. I don't really go into a lot of detail describing my activities or responsibilities. Lastly, I don't think you need to worry about any gaps or having a contiguous career history on your LinkedIn profile. That's not as big an emphasis for recruiters as it used to be. I had a brief stint at a firm called Parity Solutions in London, quite a long time ago now. That place was a mess, and it was a relief when the new director fired me and about 6 other people that had been hired by the previous director. In the UK, you don't have any job entitlements or job rights until you've been in your role for 12 months. Well, we all got fired after 10 or 11 months. You'll never see that short job on my LinkedIn profile. Lastly, and here's a bonus section, it's the licenses and certifications section. We live in a new era of continuous learning. Mark Smith, the NZ365 guy, says that consultants don't get training when they're on the bench anymore. It's up to each of us to spend 25 minutes a day keeping our skills up to date and to keep acquiring new skills. Your licenses and certifications section on LinkedIn is a great place to demonstrate that you're a continuous, lifelong learner in the topics you want to use in your next role. I've recently taken an Azure DevOps course through LinkedIn Learning, which is an awesome feature, by the way. I can definitely recommend upgrading to the LinkedIn Premium Career or LinkedIn Premium Business if you can afford it. I passed my Scrum.org Professional Scrum Master Level 2 and Professional Product Owner Level 1 certification exams recently, and those are all listed on my LinkedIn profile. As a Microsoft Business Applications professional, you need to be learning Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, Dynamics 365, as well as related skills in topics like Azure, and soft skills like project management, change management, or DevOps, whatever suits the future direction of your career. You should be aiming for at least one new skill each quarter and adding them to LinkedIn, and retiring old certifications that are no longer relevant to where you want your career to go. I love using LinkedIn. I hope I've given you some ideas about how to improve your LinkedIn profile. I had just over 2,000 connections when I left my role at KPMG. That's about 10 months ago. They wanted me to use LinkedIn to help share their message. Things like tax policies, smart cities, and the future of auditing. My managing partner didn't appreciate me using LinkedIn to build my own personal brand and to share my expertise and passion for using the Scrum Agile software development framework to implement Dynamics 365, even if that expertise helped us win several large engagements. And when I left KPMG last June, I really doubled down on using LinkedIn. I celebrate everyone who completes my course and everyone who achieves a Microsoft Dynamics 365 certification, or any of the new Power Apps and Flow courses that you can do on places like edX or LinkedIn Learning. I love reading about the new roles that professionals in our industry are taking, the topics that they're posting about, the blogs and podcasts and videos that they're sharing. So my goal now is to connect with 10 times the number of business applications people that I was connected with last June. I'm almost there. I'm on track to make it, I hope. So if we're not already connected, you can find me at linkedin.com/in/Neil Benson. I'd love to know how you're using LinkedIn to set yourself up for professional success with Microsoft Business Applications. Thanks very much for joining me on this show. You can keep in touch with me by connecting on LinkedIn or visiting my website, which is customary.com. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.